The new album, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, it's incredibly diverse. Is that purposely done?
Not having been in the studio since The Head on the Door, and with me insisting that the others wrote some music, I got cassettes from the others for the first time. When we went in to record it, there were songs like from the others which musically I would never have written. I just don't write like that. I mean, they're obvious to my head. There's point to saying which songs aren't and which are, because they're all gradually worked on by the group and they all become as the group wants them to be. But we never intended to make a double album when we started. We didn't think we'd make a double album, but the more we kept recording, and we were recording like 2 or 3 songs a day, and they were all good. And I was thinking, we got to the point where we'd recorded 25 songs, and I sort of like said, we better stop, because we've got to sort of like, I've got to sing on them, we've got to mix them, and we've got to make it into something coherent. And I mean, even now, the 18 songs that are on the album aren't the 18 songs that, if you ask the others what 18 songs they put out of the 25, they all disagree with me. It's my final choice. It's the only bit of non-democracy that took place about it. So I mean, that's the reason why it's so diverse, is because there was like input from all five of us, which there never has been before, not so to that degree.
This was like more of a group record.
Yeah, like The Head on the Door, I wrote the initial sort of music, like the skeleton of each song, and then the group interpreted it a bit like an orchestra. Whereas with this one, it actually started off, from a point where I thought, good grief, like Paul writes the most weird sort of pieces of music, and it's only the most acceptable ones I can even bear to listen to. He writes some really weird times. It has no concept of key or anything. It's but sometimes he'll have a really good melody, and I was thinking, well, it seems pointless, to disregard that when he can write really good songs. They're not like Cure songs, but once I take that and I sort of like change it a little bit, it fits into. I mean, now the umbrella under which like a Cure song fits is so enormous that we could probably for this time do a country and western song, and I don't think people would be that surprised. I hope we never do. Paul loves it, you see. He actually wrote a country western song and pleaded for it to be included on the album, but I haven't gone that insane yet. A lot of it sounds new, and a lot of it is. It's like we've gone into areas that we've never worked in before, but at the same time, it's taken a lot of elements that we've used over the years. It's just the actual flavour of some of the songs, like particularly some of the slower songs, like 1,000 Hours, would be a song that I would really have loved to have written around the time of Faith, and it's because it encompasses like an enormous slice of what I was feeling like at that time and how I still feel. But I think it's much more accomplished now, and with a song like Shiver and Shake, that's what Give Me It always wanted to be. It's just like a really vicious, really angry song, and there's all bits of what we've done but made that much better because it's the whole group's actually started, and it's like there's input from different personalities rather than always just me. I mean, this is a very personal point of view. I don't suppose that other people will see it in quite the same way, because they'll only be aware of it, they'll only hear it for the first time as The Cure, whereas I'm hearing everything we do from the point when it doesn't even exist. I see it right from the point when someone will give me a cassette and say, what about this? So I'm obviously looking at this record in a very different way, and for the first time I'm seeing the group work as a group. I mean, for the first time ever, musically it's never happened like this before. So I'm glad that, everyone that hears it thinks it's the best thing we've done, but it's making the others horribly arrogant though. See, if we'd have written the songs all along, they keep saying to me.
The Kiss, the first track, is a really, really brutal opening song. But what kind of feel were you going for there? Just an all-out bludgeoning attack?
That was, I worked myself up into the frame of mind to do the guitar part just in one go, so that it would sound like an actual piece rather than bother about drop-ins and structure and stuff. And it's just played through until it naturally ends. It's I just thought it would be good to start an album with this. It's got such pretty songs on it, and it's generally so nice to listen to and quite easy to listen to. I thought it'd be good, that you have to get through. You have to sort of like get through 6.5 minutes of bitterness before you actually start to enjoy it. It's made to appear as diverse as it can by the actual way the songs run into each other. They're all a completely different song. There's a completely different song. But I thought that the other extreme we could have done would be to put a song like Why Can't I Be You or Catch or Hot Hot Hot, one of the easier songs, right at the head of the album. People would think, this is going to be jolly, and would get the wrong idea. I mean, whatever we put at the head of the album, you're going to get the wrong idea of what the record's like, really. But I mean, I think so. I said, well, if I've never ever listened to the first track on the record without listening to the rest of it, even if I hate it. Generally, I think that people should be at least prepared to listen to the first side as a whole.
Right, Catch is like quite a whimsical song. Is that going to be another single?
That'll be the next single, yeah. I'm not loath to put out a second single from this record, because there's so much disagreement about even what's on the album that, I mean, there's at least 5 different singles. I think there's probably agreement on Why Can't I Be You. There's a majority agreement within the group that should be the single. But certainly after that, we are going to do Catch, because I think it'll be a nice change, and it'll be like we can do a nice film with it, with Pap, and it'll be like a summer record.
So is Pap the nickname you've got for Tim Pope?
Yeah.
Okay, now Tim Pope been involved in directing all of your videos for the last 4 years or so. In the current video for Why Can't I Be You, he managed to get you dancing. Now, how did he manage that?
Well, the thing about the videos is that he always asks me what I think the video should be. He always says, "Go on then, tell me what you think." 9 times out of 10, what I think the video should be, he's already thought the video should be. Within rough, broad parameters, we think the same, which is why he does our videos. He has the same sort of visual sense as I do of the group. And with Why Can't I Be You, the whole group felt that we should do some choreographed dancing, as it would be the last thing that people would expect from The Cure. I can see why now, having made it. It's not exactly 5-star, but the woman who was trying to teach us gave up. She was like despairing.
I think it's quite funny
how inept we were.
You look at you in the video, and you're so obviously taking the dancing so seriously.
You had to. I mean, I was desperately concentrating all the time. I'm like 1 2 1 2 3. Like 2 3 2 2 3. It's like awful. It really was. I mean, I can see now why we don't. We've never made a choreographed video before. We'll never make another one either. But it looks funny, which is what it's designed to do.
Why Can't I Be Used in the charts at the moment? Is chart success that important to you now?
No, no more than it ever has been. It's sort of relatively important in different places because it means more or less to us in different places. It's always been immaterial, but it would be frustrating. It's difficult for me to say it doesn't mean anything, because everything we've done has always been slightly more popular than anything we've done before. So it's easy for me to be very dismissive about it. But I think that I would be very frustrated if we had less success than we have. If the records were completely ignored by the media, I would be a bit distraught, I think, because it would mean that people weren't being exposed to what we were doing. I enjoy The Cure getting played on the radio, because it means that people have to listen to it if they've got the radio on, and it's the only way to, it doesn't matter if people like it or don't. I dislike 99% of things that I'm exposed to, so I don't see why, if people dislike The Cure, they should get away from us. But it's not important in the sense of like status or anything. In one way, we would never have had this longevity if we'd had chart success a few years ago, because people would have been too easily labelled, and people would know exactly what we're like. Now we're able to sort of deal with it. We're much more slippery now. We can sort of escape tags and things because I'm so used to playing the extremely foolish games that you have to indulge in. So doing television shows and the whole thing now, we're much more adept at putting ourselves across exactly how we want to. We've never been overawed because we've never been desperate for that sort of attention, because we've concentrated as much on playing live as we have doing anything else. I can't, on the one hand, honestly and sincerely say I worry about chart success when the last time I bought a record was, probably over a year ago.
So if that's not important to you, then have you got any yardstick by which you measure success, whether you determine, that was successful or that wasn't?
It's difficult. I never really think of what we do in terms of success. I've always only measured what we do by what I would think of it if I stood outside of it and looked at it, and I always think that's every facet of what we do, what we look like, how I conduct myself, how I'm perceived generally, and what the group does, what we sound like. The whole thing, I always sit there and I look at it in a very sort of broad way, and I think if I was outside this, would I want to be in The Cure? Would I think The Cure is a good group? Do I think that we're doing good stuff? It's just that I compare us to people that I like, to contemporaries that I admire, and I think, are we as good as that? I never sort of think, oh, grief, we're not in the top 10, because I look at the top 10 and I think, well, I'd seriously rather hang myself than be there, you know, if I had to be like the people who are in the top 10. So it's a different way of gauging what we do. I mean, I'm aware of us being successful, and I mean, it would have to please you. I would be lying sort of shamefacedly if I said it didn't, because it's obviously going to. Because it means that we're being heard, you know, we're doing something that's being heard by more people. But I'd still feel that I'd rather The Cure did something and it was liked for reasons that I like it. I would rather have a smaller audience that we meant more to than a big audience that we meant nothing to. It's that's just sort of part of my nature, which is why we've always been sort of slightly outside of the mainstream. I think we always will be, even if we sold 10 million records. I don't think we'd ever be accepted as a mainstream group.
Right. In Torture, you know, what actually happens to the person there? Because that's you know, he goes from something light like Catch, then boom, we're at it again in Torture.
Yeah, that's just sort of like a bondage song a bit, I think, really.
It sounds like you're into like an S&M tale.
Yeah, it is a bit. Better not go into that too deeply. That reflects just another bizarre facet of the group. One which will be, you know, brought to light probably as this year drags on. I mean, I've written all the words to the record, but on a few of the songs, I've taken phrases or sentences. I've asked the others for bits of words so that I can get, because I mean, I realise that the record does reflect a group much more now. I mean, in the past, I've often said that and really felt that a lot of it is just me, because I've been writing the music and writing the words and doing the interviews, and it's the group lineup sort of just changed from time to time, and there's never been that sort of stability where I can honestly say, oh, this is a group. But with this record, I mean, it is as much the others as it is me. You know, I mean, so I couldn't expect to have an entire album of words which they disagreed with or which they weren't happy with. I mean, I could have, I suppose. It would have been a bit pointless. They wouldn't have felt as happy with it. So some of the songs reflect what the others think as well. But I mean, I've actually written them because I suppose I'm more adept at writing than they are.
Do you find it easy to write then?
I did for this record, yeah. I don't normally, and never in the past. Beyond a certain point, I always reach a sort of, I get stuck. But this time, I didn't at all. In fact, I wrote more songs than we had recorded. I wrote 27 songs. I wrote for 2 songs that we never got round to recording. I mean, I don't know why. It just all sort of came tumbling out. It's quite odd. I think, again, because I haven't written a song since In Between Those and Close to Me. I mean, it's a long time. It's like 2 years since we recorded that. So a lot of things have happened to me, and a lot of sort of been stored up inside me. And I've also been writing in that time as well. It's not as like I just sat down and wrote the entire album in a day. Well, I mean, I tend to write I've just got into the habit of writing all the time. You know, I mean, most of it's awful, but I mean, even if I come up with 1 page out of 100 that I like, you know, it makes it worthwhile.
The track, If Only Tonight We Could Sleep, it sounds as if you're an insomniac. Are you a nocturnal creature?
Yeah, I am. I'm more and more. I seem to be. I never go to bed before 5 anymore. I just can't sleep before 5. I've always preferred the night time since I was about sort of 15 years old, just because it's much quieter, you know, and there's less going on. It's just easier to sort of sit and do things. And particularly as I don't really like sunlight very much, and I burn, so I don't know. I do prefer the night though, but not in a sort of like a, you know, it's much more mysterious or anything. It's really just because it's quieter. I prefer it. There
haven't been too many sitar sounds on a Cure record before, have there?
No.
Whose idea was it to put them on?
Again, it's just an underused sound. It's only because we've got this keyboard that's had a really good sitar sound in it that we decided to use it. And I've been listening to a lot of Ravi Shankar as well recently. Someone says, oh, it's very 60, you know, very 1967, but it isn't. It's very sort of like 14th century India, I feel, more than 1967.
You weren't tempted to get a real sitar player in there?
I've got a sitar, but I can't play it very well, and we didn't really want to get anyone in from the outside to play it on anything. We did have, there's 2 bits of sax on it, but that was just by chance. You know, that was just because I was drunk in a barn. This bloke happened to be playing. I invited him back to the studio to play on the record. I didn't remember very much about it the next day, but it sounds really good.
What tracks was that?
Hey You and Icing Sugar.
Right.
It's just when we were in Nassau. This bloke was just like wailing away. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. I mean, it was a good idea. I shouldn't say that.
So what's the story behind how beautiful you are? Because there's like the weary man with greyish eyes and all that.
That's the literary one on the record. It's from a Baudelaire short story. Someone gave me a book of Arthur Rimbaud, Baudelaire and Verlaine short stories and poems, and I read through them all, and that one just really struck me because I'd actually written a song like that around the time we were doing Faith, about how you think that you really know someone and you really love someone, then you suddenly discover that they can react to something you find very important. They react in a totally different way, and you can't believe that it's the same person. And I had a set of words that had that sort of idea, and when I read this story I thought, I mean, it's the same as anything, nothing's new, it's all like different ways of, I always feel of reflecting the very basic sort of emotions. I don't think I've ever discovered anything that someone hasn't discovered before, but everything's rediscovery anyway. So it was just like putting that idea, once I read it I thought it's a good idea actually having it so that you take it down to one incident. I tried doing it into like a very general sense of not understanding someone, but then I thought to actually take one particular incident and write a song, that was about the most difficult song to write, because I wanted to get it just right so that it sounded like a song rather than just like a literary exercise. But I think it's turned out really, really good, that one. I'm pleased with it.
I mean, is writing for you like real self-discipline? I mean, do you have to work at it?
No, I write, and I write really fast, and I just if I can't think of what I want to put in something, but I know the idea, I just write. I'd write in the side, in the margin, what idea I want, but I'd never sort of like bother stopping the flow to worry about rhyming or something. Then I'll read it back and I'll drop in words, and I do it. I mean, a lot of it's very haphazard. I mean, that sounds like I do it in a very cultured, very skillful manner. I don't at all. It's quite often I'll go out and start singing with a gap in a song, and I'll just sing, like I'll either repeat a couple of lines or I'll think, this is it, and I'll stop the tape and I just fill it in. There's all different ways. Other times I'll just have just a page of lines, and I'll just pick them at random, whichever, my first pass through on singing a vocal, and I just see what sounds best, and then I build the song up from that. I think that sounds like a good chorus or something. Depending again what I want to convey in the song. If it's a specific, then I'd spend much more time deliberating over the correct choice of words. If it's more like a mood, you can get away with a lot more. I mean, on this record, some of the writing is some of the best writing that I've ever done, because it does actually convey very specific things. Whereas in the past, if I've been a bit lazy, I've thought, I've also in the past written quite obscure songs, which I've never really bothered about people understanding. Whereas in this one, I've been a bit more careful about, I suppose, what I'm conveying, and I realised that there's not that much ambiguity in a lot of the songs that we've done this time. No, they're very obvious what they're about.
I like Snakepit, for instance. I mean, is there a particular location? Yeah,
that was a particular incident that happened. That happened quite a while ago, and that I'd stuck in my mind. With a lot of those songs that are like Hot Hot Hot, I sit there and I'll think, not when we're doing the album, but at any time, and just when you have a reverie, and I might think of something that I haven't thought about in years, and I just make a note of the actual incident, so that then when I'm coming to write, and I'll like think to myself, what did I feel then? Because it's like some things that I experienced when I was younger, and that I'm probably not as aware of now. I'm not exposed to as much. We were so, we were far less cosseted than we are now. I'm really aware of it. So in a lot of cases, I'm drawing on experience that happened before the Cure started to become this successful, because it's a very false environment that I spend a lot of my time in now, and I don't really want to write songs about being in hotel rooms or going on planes. It's very tedious. So like last year, I purposely took a couple of months away, and that's why we didn't do much live work. People say, why don't you play in our country, why don't you do this? But if I didn't experience things outside of the group, there'd be absolutely nothing for us to to do that would be new for me. There'd be nothing fresh, and I'd get very tired of it very quickly. Given the choice between real life and this, I'd rather take real life.
So
I'd
where
rather
did you
have
go?
both. Just around England, you know. I just went off and saw the Lake District again, and just went to Wales, just to have time just to sit and just be normal, really.
So what is the incident or the location behind Snakepit?
That was just happened. That happened on someone's birthday a few years ago, and it was in a sort of a horrible disco. It's literal. It was just I was just taken somewhere in a car full of girls, and it was really it was a dreadful experience. I shouldn't say too much about it, really.
Your voice seems to be quite strong on the album. I mean, did you practice a lot for that, or had you just done some touring before you actually did the vocals on the album, or what?
No, I hadn't done anything. We finished the film in Orange in August, I think, just at the end of August, and we went straight to the album. But no, I think it's much more mental, my singing. The approach is more of a mental approach, so, rather than the physical thing. I mean, I think I always could have sung like this, but in the past it hasn't suited me to. Like through 17 Seconds of Faith and Pornography, I mean, the songs were sung as I sang them. They were very, very plain. They were very simple, and I didn't ever need I never felt the need to affect my voice in any way. Since the top, I've experimented more with how I can sound, and on this one I've gone quite peculiar on something like Hot Hot Hot. You know, it's almost like gospel. Yeah,
it's almost as if you're consciously trying.
I am doing it, but I never practice it. I go out and I just do it, and then I come back in, and if the general consensus, if the looks on people's faces in the control room is like beaming and happy, I think, well, I better listen to it back. If they're all very sullen, then I think, maybe this isn't going to work. But Hot 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 was the most revolutionary departure, really, from anything that I've sung before.
Well, Hot 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 is the first really funky number for The Cure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pure chic.
Had you been listening to a lot of black music before, that one? You decided to do that one?
No, I mean, a lot of these songs were, a lot of what we do, it involves things like Hot Hot Hot, and we'll, if we're doing a sound check or if we're in the studio or wherever we are, particularly now Boris is playing the drums, and he can play any kind of rhythm, any kind of beat, he can play like salsa or just anything, so he'll sort of start playing something and everyone just joins in, and Hot 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 was one of those things. It was just like a bass line that I'd had, and I was thinking, this is a really sort of typical sort of funk bass, and I was just playing it to Simon, and Boris just joined in on the drums, and I thought this would be really funny if we turned this into a song. And it's so Paul came out and just started playing sort of chicken picking guitar, and within half an hour we had the song. So it's really spontaneous. It's just the sort of things. I mean, in the past, because I would have had a much more precise idea of what the record was supposed to be like, there was never any room to do things like that. I mean, which is good. The records have always had a reason behind them, and this one was really to capture what the group's like. And so things like that, if it sounded good and it worked, it was going to go on the record, because there was no reason for it not to go on. I mean, obviously we didn't sit down and think, we should do a funk song, because if we thought like that, we would never actually do anything. The only thing that's like that is country and western. Paul would always come and say, "I've got this great country and western lick," knowing that I'm going to get extremely upset.
So what's the song actually about? Were you going more for the feel there, or is it actually trying to say something? Because all this business about lightning striking.
Yeah, lightning striking is just a veiled term for a revelation. Again, I shouldn't say too much about it. You sort of read into it what you want, really. It just seemed like an exciting phrase, rather than saying the first time I realised that, I thought that first, it is a phrase, and it's to be struck by lightning when you suddenly realise something.
A lot of the songs on the album, I mean, including One More Time, they've all got quite long musical introductions to them before you actually hear some vocals on it. Did it work out that because you had more input from the rest of the group, that it turned out to be like a more musical album?
Yeah, certainly with the slower ones, they could have been, virtually all of them could have been longer. I had to edit quite a lot of them, and or decide at the time that they were going to be short. because it would have turned into, I think it was in danger of rambling too much. I didn't know how many slow songs were going to go on and how many fast, and I thought, well, if the balance is tips towards sort of 5 or 6 very long, very slow pieces, the record isn't going to be a fair reflection of what we're doing. But when we were going through them, we were actually just playing through before we started recording, were very, very long. I mean, something like One More Time, we would play for like half an hour, so that you would know all the bits that you could do in it and sort of all the little tunes that there might be. And so I mean, it's quite hard when you've got songs like that to decide how long they should be, because I was always doing the vocals after the song. I'd just be doing rough guide vocals, so I'd never know how emotional I was going to get, and whether the intro should be long or whether I should come in hard to the start of the song and then have a long outro. It's difficult to know those sort of things, and so a lot of it's like just gambling, really. I think it works. I think that One More Time, if we were to redo it, would be longer. It's the only song on the record that I would make longer. But something like Icing Sugar, which is like just mental. I mean, it's like one of Simon's songs, and Boris. It's just little drums and just like a weird stuff. I mean, that was originally about 8 minutes long. I mean, it had everything on it. It had like percussion and bird song and thunder, and it's just one of those things that we just had like an enormous big slab of it, and everyone just put on what they wanted, and then it was like edited together to form like just a complete song.
Like Cockatoos, I mean, is that like another literary one?
The title obviously comes from
the Patrick
White book, yeah. But the song has nothing at all. There's no relevance to the book at all. But the sound at the beginning of it was actually, it's supposed to be a string section on the emulator, and I was going through all the different sounds I played, and I thought that sounds like, you imagine like a big flock of birds taking off with sound, and I thought to myself, it's like Cockatoos. And so to recognise the songs, because they never have proper titles all the time we're going through, it's like they're referred to as the, like, oh, it was that chic one, or the funk one, so that it doesn't influence me just to, what the content of the words can be finally, because if you give them a title straight away, then you start always to think under that title. So that one became like Cockatoos because it was the one that had that sound like Cockatoos. So it's but it's actually nothing to do with the book. But I mean, anyone who knows about The Cure knows that I have great fondness for all Patrick White's literature. I mean, it's influenced me in the past lyrically on a couple of songs, but not really on this record. The only literary one on the record is How Beautiful You Are. There isn't really anything else, because I didn't actually read anything which inspired me to write. Everything else just comes from direct experience, which is unusual because there's usually 2 songs that are nicked.
The Perfect Girl, I mean, was that written for anybody?
Yeah. Whoever's listening.
So do you often write songs specifically for people, or is that like a new departure for you?
I always have specifics in mind. Even if I'm writing like very general mood sort of songs, I always know exactly what. I mean, it would be impossible otherwise to write a song. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be impossible, but it'd be very weak, I think, to sit down and put together a whole bunch of words just for the sake of it. I think it'd be awful. So I always know who I'm writing about. I mean, I'm the only person that knows. I would never tell. I mean, the rest of the group don't know either. I would never say, because it. I think it would sort of take away some of the mystery of the song. It would also get me in a lot of trouble, I think, as well, if everyone knew exactly what all the songs were about. So I mean, I always think that when I write songs and they have specific people in mind or specific events, that those people, or the people who were present at the time, know, and no one else is going to. But I mean, the other good thing about not saying exactly what they're about is that they can appeal to other people because they're not pinned down. You've
been with the same girl for what, 14 years?
Yeah, 15 now, I think.
Are you married to her?
No. No, it's just a friendship.
Did she criticise your work?
Oh yeah. Do
you take any notice of it?
Yeah, a lot. Particularly lyrically. She doesn't really musically, because she doesn't write music, so I wouldn't take much notice. But lyrically, she's very critical. Yeah, she often says, you shouldn't sing that. It sounds stupid. I either agree or disagree. She doesn't ever impose herself on it. I mean, I generally have to ask her opinion, because she knows how much, I suppose, it all means. So I don't know. No, she contributes. She contributes as I mean, Simon's been going out with the same girl for about 12 or 13 years, and I've known her for that long as well. So she sort of says, you know, I mean, when I was doing vocals for this record, we had what was called the panel, which was Simon, Mary, and Carol, and they were the three people out of everyone that I paid most attention to when I asked, you know, if I was doing a song like One More Time or 1,000 Hours, if it sounded convincing. When I was singing it, like, and I was being very involved in what I was singing, and I wouldn't want a lot of people there. I would always have those three there, and Dave, who was like engineering, and I'd go in and I'd say, you know, does it sound right? And if they didn't think it sounded right, even though I knew that I was singing it like from the bottom of my heart, if I thought if it doesn't sound right to them, it's never going to sound right to anyone else. So in that sense, I take notice of the others in the group, like Boris, particularly for a lot of the structure of songs and the tempo. So I mean, everyone sort of within the Cure setup has their own particular role to play. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of isolated to the degree where I take no notice. And I mean, as Mary has known me for so long, she's obviously got more of an insight problem than anyone else into what I'm trying to do anyway.
Shiver and Shake, that's a pretty angry song. I mean, do you have to be in a certain kind of mood to write lyrics like that?
Yeah, that's a peculiar song actually to do, because that was the one song that it took me, I had about 20 goes probably singing that. Every day I would sort of half-heartedly have a go, and it was only on one particular day, really near the end of the recording, when something happened, and I thought, right, and it was like we were doing something else, and I had a phone call, and I thought, right, this is the moment, and I just went and I said, quick, put on the tape Shiver and Shake, and I went and just sang it in one go. So it's I like that vocal. I think it's because it's just, you can tell it's just done, and it's really raw. It's good, and it's all sort of breaks up, and I don't quite hit the notes. I like that when I do vocals like that. Some of the others I took like quite a lot of time on, like working out how I should sing, like All I Want. I sort of thought that through quite a few times to get it all in the right place. But a song like Shiver and Shake was just a rant, really. It was good fun to do. Once I'd done it, I knew that that was the one song, even if that hadn't sounded right, even if the entire vocal had been flat, it would have had to have stayed on, because it had captured exactly how, you know, what the song was supposed to do. But I actually wrote the words to it quite early last year. I had the words for a long time.
So to write lyrics generally, I mean, do you need to be in a particular mood, or do you work best under pressure, or what?
No, I don't. I work worst under under the manufactured pressure that you generally find in a recording studio. In the past, I've gone in with less words than I needed, and I've ended up sort of writing words that, when I look back at them, I can see the songs that didn't have enough time spent on, or were written under pressure. But with this, I mean, I'd say out of I have the 25 or 27 songs, probably about 14 or 15 sets of lyrics were virtually written. I never finish a set of words until it's actually sung. I mean, I'm changing it all the time, even when I'm out singing. But a lot of the basic ideas and a few lines were already there. So I knew I had more than enough to do a single album, which is all I envisaged doing when we went into the studio anyway. So there was no problem to continue writing once we were there, because recording at Miraval, which was like a vineyard more than a studio, really. It was just...
Whereabouts is that? That's in France,
yeah, in Provence. It was just so different to anywhere we've recorded before. We've always recorded in London or around London. It was just so glorious to get up and just walk outside, and it was like autumn. It's really nice just to walk. You know, you could like sit in the middle of a field and just like finish off a set of words, and just there'd be nothing to intrude. There's like no traffic, there's no people, there's no phones. It was just perfect. It's perfect isolation, really. I lived for like a month. It was just like the record, which is the first time I've been allowed to do that, because always you come out of the studio and you either, you know, you get into a cab and you see the real world, and it's raining and there's people going to work or whatever, and it sort of breaks the atmosphere. Whereas with this, all that the only reason we were there for a month was just to make the record, and it was, as we'd demoed virtually everything in a little 8-track studio for 2 weeks. And so we knew what was going to work, and we knew that it was going to be good. The atmosphere was really perfect. So there was lack of pressure, actually, that's made it such a good record.
The last track on the album is Fight. That's a pretty positive song, isn't it?
Yeah, which is why we stuck it at the end. It's that's the most unusual song on the record, I think, from a Cure point of view, from a historical point of view, because we've never really done a positive song like that, lyrically as positive as that, where I'm actually saying do something about it. You know, it's usually like the songs you're either being cornered or you're being forced to do something, and this is like it's almost anthemic, really. It was there's like a pride involved in it, which I sort of felt when we were making the record and we were there, and I was thinking it's so good that after all this time we're still doing things which are better than what we've done before. I thought, and it's disproving all, you know, again historically what happens to groups and how they're supposed to creatively dry up and get worse and get very flabby and sort of and lose touch and all the other things that do happen to 99% of groups after like the first, well, I mean, actually it's like the first week it appears, but generally after the first 2 records, and it's just I was just really felt pleased. Now I just translated that into when I was starting of how I felt, which is the same as I feel now about sort of not believing in other people's criticism, you know, and of actually like doing something about it. I mean, the reason why the group started was a very positive was for very positive reasons, was to react against the dross, you know, and that's still the central reason why the group continues, because I still think like I hadn't heard a record that's as good as this recently. There's been a few that are as good as, like Kate Bush's album is as good as this. It sounds definitely big-headed, doesn't it? But I mean, just from my point of view, what I like, and that if I was, like I was saying earlier, of looking at the group from an outsider's point of view, I think it's the best thing we've done. So I mean, I thought there had to be a song in it that translates that sort of pride, you know. But it was funny singing it. It was a very, very strange feeling, and listening back to it was very strange as well, thinking, you know, it sort of like surges into this, you know, rise up and fight sort of chorus. I can just see them punching the air now. Oh dear.
Now, I believe you also filmed a concert in Orange, which is coming out soon, called The Cure in Orange. Why did you want to do a concert film?
Again, it was all part of this sort of. There was a very retrospective air about everything last year, and the group had reached a point. We played in America, and I thought that we had reached a point with like the songs we were playing and the lineup as it was, and just the show that had to end last year, and I thought, well, it would be really nice just to capture it. Initially it was just for our own benefit. We were going to film it, you know, just like a video, and just have it and say, you know, that was me, you know. Like we thought about it, and thought how we could do it, and we got Tim Papp interested in, you know, he'd never made like a full-length film, and the more we talked about it, we found the easier it would be to do, because like we were presenting ourselves on stage anyway with a light show, and we were playing the songs that we, you know, it was all there. It wasn't like we had to just do anything. So once we roped him in and got him interested in it, he sort of just took the whole thing over, and I mean, it's really his film. It's his
it's his first feature film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his perspective on us playing a concert. See, he felt that over the past sort of 4 years, he's made The Cure too small. He's like very worried about having put us in always onto a small screen and only showing really one side visually of what we are, which is like he's always taken up the more humorous side to what we do. And he wanted to redress the balance as well by making a film which is, I mean, it looks enormous, and the place was picked. Especially, he sort of went down there and said, you know, that there's these old amphitheatres in the south of France, and it would just look really perfect if you play there. So it's, you know, it's his film. He's directing it. All we did was just we played the concert, and he was supposed to capture it. But the thing is, it's like it's also from on stage. He came on stage, and it's not a film of a concert. It's far more than that. And there's a lot of sort of surprising things in it, which it's unlike anything that anyone's seen before. I mean, as it would be with Tim doing it. Again, it's like when we go out and play concerts this year, it'll be a completely new batch of songs. I mean, it'll even be a different lineup. We're going to have a 6th member.
Who's that going to be?
Year. I'm not allowed to say it because he's with another group at the moment. We're stealing him.
Is he well known?
No, the group is though.
So, how important do you think your image is to you these days?
I think the group image is really important. I never think of me having an image. It's like if I know that I can cut my hair off like I did last year, I know that it still matters as little to me as it always has. I mean, I look how I choose to look. It has nothing really to do with being in a group. You know, I've got my hair back now almost to what it was like this time last year, because I feel like it. I think it looks better on me than short hair. But the actual image of the group, we think about, because obviously like with 5, and there's going to be 6 of us, I mean it's even more difficult to have like a coherent image rather than I wouldn't like the group for it to sort of like be seen as 5 people. I much, even though there are 5 people involved, I much prefer to look at the group as like a unified front, like an us against them sort of idea. But I think it's far less a visual thing, the Cure's image, than how we do things, and people sort of, the image is built up through what we don't do as much as what we do. It certainly has nothing to do with us all wearing the same shirts. It goes much deeper than that. We've always had a very sort of proud and very obstinate attitude towards what we do, in that we do it for ourselves and we do it for people like us who are going to like it, and so we never feel like anyone's doing us any favours by allowing us to be played on the radio, and when we think that we should be played on the radio, seen all the time. So it's but it's just when people know that, they know what we're like, and they know that we're very dismissive of the whole thing, and of that sort of the very unimportant side of being in a group. But that's the sort of image that I worry about. I mean, it'd be awful if we sort of went soft. The whole thing would fall to pieces, I think.
Does your self-confidence increase with success?
I've always had confidence in what I've done, because I know that by the time it gets to the point where other people can get their hands on it or can listen to it, I've already agonised about it so much that I know it's right. I mean, it's right for me. I mean, in that sense, I'm very selfish about everything that we do. But no, I've always been self-confident. That you can be sort of quiet and self-confident, and I'm not a very extrovert person in public. I mean, I am in the videos, and I am on stage. I mean, I must be to even walk out on stage. But I don't seek attention, and so I'm quietly confident. It's not very cliche, not very hackneyed.
Do you feel any sense of responsibility to set an example to some of the young fans?
The one difficult area of us becoming popular is me having to come to terms with that people see me they see me as someone larger than life, and I can never get used to it, because it's the same people, particularly being with Mary, and I'd never think of myself as anything other than me, and it's difficult when you know that everything you're doing, like when we're here, is going to be reported on and photographed, and I can't sort of throw up in a club anymore like I used to without worrying about the consequences, But again, I think a lot of the people, I would imagine that a lot of people like us because we do what we want, and we are normal, and I don't really need to think about setting an example, because I set an example to myself, so I don't really have to worry about anyone else. I mean, I hate myself if I do something, the next day I think, why on earth did I say that? Why did I do that? So over the course of the years, I've got used to sort of thinking, probably more than other people do, about what I'm going to do, if it's going to affect anyone else. I never bother if it isn't. But so it's at the same time, I don't feel responsible in the way of thinking, hey kids, this is your Uncle Robert saying don't do this. But I haven't done anything over the past few years which I wouldn't want anyone to know about anyway, so I don't have to agonise over it too much. I don't think that I should be I mean, I've always absolved myself of that sort of responsibility. I don't see why I should be forced on me just because our records are popular. I mean, that's why I don't put myself forward. I try not to very much, less and less.
Does the absurdity of the whole music business and the whole thing ever strike you?
No more so than life. No, I mean, because we're not really involved. We never see it. We never go to anything that's music busy. So the whole thing about the selling of records and the complete disregard for what they contain horrifies me. It doesn't strike me as particularly absurd. The race to be number one, the whole way that people conduct themselves, and the emphasis being geared on sales and success, and over a period of time you become so aware that no one really gives a toss what you're actually doing, apart from the people that will take it home and listen to it. And it's so. I mean, I always think of the link between me and the person that's going to listen to what we do or see the concert. I never ever spend any time worrying about what goes on in between, because everything's done within the whole little Cure world, and then it's just it's sort of shipped out. We give birth to it, and it's there. It's already complete, and all people have got to do is listen to it if they want to, or experience it if they want to.
In the videos that you do, it seems like Lol always draws the short straw when it comes to being
Lol drew
tortured.
the short straw when he dropped from his mother's womb.
Is this a master plan you've got to always make Lol suffer in the video?
Well, Lol, I think the reason why Lol's always been in the group is because he's always been that foil for that side of my character in particular, and he's always been willing to put up with it. I mean, what you don't see is him giving it all back, but that, he has become. Well, I mean, he always has been the scapegoat. It's just it's developed in the videos, particularly because Pat sees it and sort of draws it out. It's just natural, really. He's picked on by everyone. He's like a real sort of Stan Laurel personality. Everyone picks on him. He doesn't seem to mind though. He relishes it.
Do you believe in God?
I don't know. No, I don't believe in God really. I have in my worst moments, I have belief in absolutely nothing. I think everything's just as it seems.
But don't you believe in yourself?
I don't. Quite often, I mean, most of the time, I have no belief in my own existence after I die. No, I don't at all. Which is where all the depression comes from in a lot of the songs. I mean, it's such a everything's so hollow if you actually feel like that, and you can't ever shake it. I don't know. I went through a very cynical phase. There's still vestiges of it, which only leads me to believe that people have faith because they're scared. I mean, they won't accept their own finite nature. But I don't know. I mean, if you believe something, it's true. So it's one of those things. I mean, I confront it all the time. Every time I go up in an aeroplane, I confront my.
Does that bother you, flying?
Yeah, every fibre of my being screams that I shouldn't be up there. You've got to. It's like if you just think, like beneath your feet, there's nothing. It's just survival instinct. It's like I tingle all over. I hate flying. I wouldn't stop it though, through being scared, because that would be admitting that you were scared of your own death, which I don't really think I am.
Can you see a finite end to it?
Not in real terms, but I can in an abstract way. Yeah, I can see me not having to do an interview and not having to get up in the morning to play a concert. But I don't sort of think about it. I think it will present itself very naturally. I've always thought that, even when we hadn't even made the first album, I always thought that the end of the group would present itself very naturally. I thought for a while in 1982 that it would stop, and that after Pornography that we wouldn't do anything else, and then it just sort of like tumbled into the next sort of bit of The Cure. So I think it'll be really obvious when we stop. I'll just sort of wake up, I think, oh God, this isn't appealing anymore. But when it comes, it will be easy to stop, because our commitments are always kept very. I always make sure that they're never that far in advance, so that it allows me the freedom to wake up and think, I don't really want to do this much longer.